Well, hi and welcome back to the Healthy Metal Hippie. Today we have a really exciting guest. We have Sarah Wellband with us, and she is a remedial hypnotist. Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really, really excited to talk to you about everything.
Hi, Ashley. It's lovely to meet you and lovely to be on the show.
Thank you. So, we were talking a little bit before we hit record, and it sounds like you do just extremely interesting work and helping people really become the best version of themselves through hypnosis. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so remedial hypnotism is a little bit misleading because we don't use a trance element. So people, when they think of hypnosis or hypnotherapy, they often think of stage hypnosis, which is great entertainment, but it's a million miles away from what we do. So the best way to explain it is that you've got your conscious mind, which is what we're using at the moment, which is able to think very deeply about subjects but can't do more than one or two things at a time. So if you're working on anything and you need to do something else, you have to stop what you're doing and move across. So that's the conscious mind. The subconscious mind basically runs everything else that's going on in your life, your body, your day-to-day existence. And the subconscious way is where all your memories, all your emotions, your imagination, and everything that you're not using at any particular time, that's where the subconscious is looking after that. So we talk directly to the subconscious mind, and that's where the link to hypnosis comes in. Um, so with hypnotherapy or with traditional hypnosis, the person will be put into a trance and effectively go to sleep. It's not asleep, but it's similar. And then
Mm.
the therapist will talk to the subconscious while the person is asleep. With what we do is we don't put somebody into a trance, we talk directly to the subconscious and the person is aware of what's going on. So that if a question comes up or if we hit a block of some way, I can simply say to the person, what thought's going through your head at the moment? What's your subconscious telling you? And the subconscious will have put a thought into their head, I've just remembered something that happened at school. Or that there's something that you need to be aware of. So it's very non-woo, it's very pragmatic, it's very solution focused.
Right.
um, it's all about finding out what's going, not necessarily what's going wrong, but what's not working anymore. As we were talking about before, your operating system is installed in that first 10 years of your life between birth and the ability to think consciously, which comes in at about age 10. But that system needs to be upgraded sometimes because the jobs it was doing and the self-image that you had at that stage is not relevant to a 35-year-old or a 45-year-old or a 25-year-old.
Yeah.
Um, so we basically upgrade the system.
I think a lot of us really need a system upgrade, if I'm honest.
Yes.
And I think too, I would guess too, even if you had like a relatively happy childhood and let's say normal, you probably
Yeah.
still need upgrades to that system.
Yes, we develop what's known as our core beliefs in that critical first 10 years of life. And the core beliefs are the way that we view ourselves, the way that we view other people around us, primarily the caregivers, but then the wider community, and how we view the world at large. Um, and once those core beliefs are lodged in our subconscious, they become truths. They become who we are. Now, I'll give you a very trite but true example of myself. When I was young, I wore flip-flops. And then at some point, I must have had a pair of flip-flops that didn't fit, and I got a big blister between my big toe and my next toe.
Oh, yeah.
And my mother said, "Oh, your feet are the wrong shape for flip-flops now." I don't blame her. It was probably horrible having to deal with a a child who was, got a very sore foot.
Yeah.
From that age until last year, when I was 60, I never bought flip-flops. I would literally walk into a shoe shop and walk past the flip-flops because, as far as I was concerned, my feet were the wrong shape. And it wasn't a conscious decision. It wasn't oh, I'd like to try flip-flops. They just weren't part of my thinking. And it
Right.
wasn't until last year, 55 odd years later, I thought, is that actually still true? Was it ever true? I got a pair of flip-flops, and they were actually very uncomfortable. But the fact that piece of information
Yeah.
had been lodged and accepted and believed meant that it was therefore no longer something that was even worth discussing. Now
Right.
that's a very simple example, but imagine you were told when you were young that you weren't pretty enough, or you weren't clever enough, or you weren't good enough at sport, or that there are so many things that aren't necessarily told, in to be cruel to a child, but a child will just take that little bit of information and bring it in and go,
Hmm.
okay, well that's who I am.
Yep.
And once that's accepted, any information that challenges that when you're older won't get through. So if somebody's been told that they are useless at sport, they will go through their lives going, oh no, I don't do sport. I'm no good at it. Now they
Right.
might try something. They might try something that they didn't do when they were a child. They might take up golf or tennis or something. And say,
Right.
actually, I'm actually quite good at that, but I'm no good at running.
Right.
That's what I learned back
Because,
then.
right, of course.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, okay, that hits a little too close to home. But
Okay.
it's,
Sorry.
no, no. But it's interesting because, so I never have even thought of, hypnotherapy as like, as a, as a thing that would even be possible for it. So that's very, very interesting to me. And, I think the more and more people I talk to, we all have stories similar like that in some ways. And, uh, the past couple of years, I've been doing a lot of work myself to kind of
Hmm.
break down those rules that I have self-imposed, because
Yeah.
even though if they were old things that were told to me that have been so embedded in who I am, I'm slowly realizing like none of that shit's true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so but wow, if you can give like a helping hand to people to get through those kind of things.
Yeah. So it's interesting what you just said, and so many people. I'll give you another story. We have a farm here in Portugal, and we have lots of animals. So we have lots of volunteers who come. They're generally young people, and they're traveling, and they come and work on the farm in exchange for food and accommodation.
Right.
And so obviously we'd be chatting in the evening, and I'd tell them what we do, and they'd often say, "Oh, there's something I want to work on. Maybe." I feel like I'm not good enough, or I've got a fear of spiders, or something. And I remarked to my partner, there must be something about people who go traveling that they've always got an issue. And he said, no,
Right.
Sarah. He said, everybody has an issue. It's
Yeah.
just nobody normally has a hypnotherapist or hypnotist sitting next to them at dinner who can fix that problem.
Yep. Exactly.
So there's,
That's
you're in a room full of people, and you say to people, you can name one thing about yourselves that you'd like to change, about the way that you think, or about the way that you feel, or about the way that you behave. Everybody would say at least one thing. I think
oh
that
yeah.
they'd have more of a problem of picking the one thing that is the most important thing that they want to change.
They'd probably have, if they could write it all out, they'd probably have pages of things.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean, it's funny. I'm like, oh, there's so many things I can think of right now. And it's funny, even sport. I think like I probably will never play volleyball again since high school, because I misserved and I hit some guy in the head, and he said
yeah,
something very mean to me,
yeah.
and I was just like, hmm. And
And
so
that's stuck with you all this time.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like I say, it's been more than 20 years. It's like,
So
Hmm.
to explain what happened then is that um, okay, I'm not sure exactly, but this is the way I would look at that: is when that happened, you were so mortified and embarrassed, and the feeling that you had after that altercation was so horrible. The little part of your subconscious went, "We don't want that to ever happen again."
Yep.
And the way that we can guarantee that that will never happen again is not to play volleyball anymore, because
Yep.
volleyball was the starting point for that incident that caused us embarrassment or guilt or all these horrible feelings that we absolutely don't want to have. So your subconscious is there to protect you and to make you happy. So it
Yep.
protects you by stopping you ever doing that thing again.
Right.
It's why people, if they're involved in a car accident, and they don't know what it happened, and there's a trauma response, and the subconscious response can be sometimes, well, we're just going to stay away from all forms of transport so that there is never any option of that thing happening again.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not feasible or healthy,
It's
you
not.
know.
It's not. And that's where phobias come from. People, there's a horrible incident outside the house, and somebody's subconscious goes, well, if we never go outside the house again, then that thing can't happen. And
Right.
that's where you get the agoraphobia from. So
Yeah.
humans are born with two inbuilt fears: the fear of being dropped and the fear of loud noises. Any other fear, anything else, we learn along the way. And anything that we learn, we can unlearn. So
Interesting.
fears work very well with this type of therapy. Trauma, PTSD, again, because as long as we can get an idea of what caused it, we can
Right.
talk to that part of the subconscious which is doing a great job for protecting us, and just say, look, you don't need to do that anymore.
And does it,
Um,
not dealing with it, I guess that sort of keeps you in that trauma state and that like kind of almost like in the fight or flight kind of mode.
Absolutely, absolutely, and
And
that's
that'll,
as you know,
sorry.
that causes all sorts of physical problems with
Yeah.
the body, because the body's always on edge and looking to either, as you say, fight or flight. So with trauma, um, if we can say, okay, the car accident happened because the other guy was texting, or the road was icy, or we can see this is why this thing happened, then
Yeah.
generally there isn't a trauma response. But if we don't know why something happened, or the other people involved can't or won't give us the information that we need, again, a part of the subconscious is assigned to figure out what happened to, to stop it happening again. But if we don't know what happened, it will just keep going and going and going. I've got to find an answer, I've got to find an answer, I've got to find an answer. And that's when you get the nightmares and the intrusive thoughts and the whole thing going over and over again. It's not to hurt you, it's to try and stop it happening again. So what
Right.
we do is, when something like that, when somebody comes to us with trauma or PTSD, is talk directly to that little part of the subconscious and say, what happened was just one of those random things. There's never going to be an answer, and therefore you can
Right.
stop looking for it. And the subconscious goes, oh, God for that. I can
Yeah.
stop this ruminating and this going over it again. I had one client who'd been through several very traumatic events in a very short period of time, all unconnected. And after the therapy, she said, I can still remember it, but it's like they're covered in oil. I reach for
Oh,
those memories, and they just slip away because they're not connected to me anymore. I thought that was a really powerful way of describing it. You know,
yeah.
you
And I
you, you
mean,
don't you you don't wipe the memory, but you sever the emotional connection.
yes. And I think that's the most important part of it because in a lot of ways,
Yeah,
there are certain things in a lot of ways you don't want to forget, but you don't want to
yeah,
keep that pain that's attached to it.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
know, keep the
yeah. We
learning and then remove the pain.
Yes, yes. And it's a similar thing with with emotional eating, I'm working actually with two ladies at the moment who are very brave and who are being filmed. So
Oh,
I shall
wow.
hopefully be putting those out at some point. Um, and again, food is so complex, but also so simple. When we're young and we're unhappy, or we're tired, or we're bored, or we're upset, we get given a biscuit or a piece of cake or a piece of chocolate.
Yeah.
And because it's sweet and we're genetically programmed to like sweet stuff, that solves the problem. So the subconscious learns very quickly that we're unhappy, something bad happens, something sweet is always going to work. And that's fine when you're you know
Oh,
5, 6, 7 years, 8 years old, and somebody else is controlling how much sweet stuff you're going to get. But when you're 30 and you're in a bad relationship,
yep.
all that all that cake and chocolate and biscuits, what it's going to do is add another layer of a problem,
Yep.
because it's not solving the issue that you're unhappy about. And all it is,
No.
you're putting on weight because you're in control of how much you can buy and how much you can eat. So again, breaking that emotional link, and once the subconscious is aware that this reward system, which works so well when you were little, is actively working against you now, again, it just stops. And that's why when we're working with people, it's generally 3 sessions. Um, and people say trauma takes years to process, trauma takes years to resolve.
Yeah.
Well, it might do, but it also can take 3 sessions, because with a lot of therapies, when you're talking conscious mind, the subconscious is sitting there in the background going, well, you're not talking
What
to
about
me.
me?
I'm the one that's triggering these emotions. I'm the one that's holding these memories. I'm the one that's producing these feelings. It's not you
Right.
wouldn't logically go, I'll get angry, I'll get sad, I'll get afraid. You can say logically, I will deal with this situation by using my intellect, by using my experience, my learning. But the subconscious is going, sod that, I'm scared.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you know what? So I have been working through PTSD. Okay.
Okay.
And it things are getting much better, but it's still tough. A few months back, I'll just give you a little example that I'm like, yep, okay, you nailed it. I was making spaghetti, a spag ball, and that was the first time that I had made it since all of these events took place. And I pretty much collapsed on the floor, like
Oh
in
God.
fear.
Yeah.
And it was horrifying. I'm like, shouldn't spag ball make you happy? But
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
Totally panicked and just it was really tough. And I mean, I was like, it's okay. Like, you can cut the
Yeah.
mushrooms like that. You can cook it this way.
Yeah.
There's not, it's
Yeah.
okay. But it was, I mean, so it's interesting that, yeah, there are there are these little things, and you can, again, you can talk to like your conscious mind, like you say, even
Yeah.
for yourself. And but
Yeah.
it's like, but there's obviously something that's still stuck in there.
Yes. Yes. And again, it's really important to know that it's not trying to hurt you. It's trying to protect you. But again, the
Yeah.
subconscious is very childlike, not
Yeah.
childish, childlike. Things are right or wrong, good or bad, black or white. And the problem is when something like that happens with that experience, that's going to give you an almighty shock, because you'll think, as you say, how can making a spag bowl have this dramatic
Yeah.
effect on me? And it's because that little part of your mind that's gone, oh shit, something happened with this, and we need, again, to protect Ashley, so we're going to trigger these emotions,
Yeah.
um, to get her to move away from the danger, or
Yeah. Which is,
to deal
it's,
with it. Yeah. And it's very scary, and it's very disconcerting when it happens. So you can understand why the trauma industry is so big. Um, and like a lot of industries, it relies on people being, how's the best way to put it, is not to give them the simple solution. You know,
Yeah.
I've read posts from people who say, I've been in trauma therapy for 20 years and I'm finally making some progress. And you're thinking, how much has that cost you? I could have
Yeah.
done that in 3 sessions for a fixed fee, and that's you done.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I even think after 20 years, yeah, that's a long time.
yeah, yeah. But again,
Holy.
it is an industry, and industries rely on new customers and repeat customers.
Do you think that there's a shift that more people now, they're not just gonna take it, the fact that they have trauma, they're like, I want to work on it. Do you think
Yeah,
that has shifted too?
absolutely. But I do think, and this is perhaps a bit controversial, that it's possibly gone too far the other way. Um,
Right.
Anxiety, for example. What
Right.
would you define? How would you call anxiety in one word? If I said, what is anxiety in one?
Um, in one word,
How would you define it? What
overwhelm. Over. I
overwhelm?
could, but
Okay.
that's not even right.
No, no.
That's like it's not even there.
So
But
most people say it's an illness, it's a disorder, it's a
right.
disease.
Right.
Anxiety is an emotion. It's the
Yeah.
same emotion as joy, fear, anger, and we need anxiety in our lives. And anxiety, so you wake up in the morning and you think, I'd like to stay in bed. But anxiety will say, if you stay in bed, you're going to miss work or you're going to miss school, and then
Yeah.
you're going to lose your job, and then you're not going to get paid, and then you won't have a bed anymore. So get up.
Yeah.
Anxiety is the emotion that tells you to check that you've got your keys before you slam your front door in the morning. Because it'll
Right.
say if you haven't got your keys in your pocket, you're going to have a problem later on. So
Yeah.
anxiety is the emotion that tells us when things are too important to ignore. Anxiety says look both ways when you cross the street because it might be a bus. So people are scared, and anxiety is not a pleasant feeling. If it was a nice
Mm.
feeling, we'd ignore it. So it's the feeling that says, you're coming up for a job interview, and you're full of anxiety, you're full of butterflies, you're full
Right.
of adrenaline and everything else, because that's important. It's important for you to perform well in that job interview because you want the job.
Right.
So there are a few things with anxiety. One, if we get anxious about things that we can't control, that is a problem.
Yeah.
So if somebody's anxious about their living situation, about their relationship, about money, about the job, and they can't do anything, then that anxiety is just going to form a ball and keep growing and growing, because the anxiety, the emotion is saying, you need to do something about this, you need to do something. And you say, I can't. Well, yeah, but you need to do something.
Right.
So, and that's when, again, you go into the fight or flight mode and the whole thing perpetuates.
Yeah.
Um, but so many people go, oh, I have anxiety. My anxiety is causing me a problem today. You say, well, what are you anxious about? Oh, I'm anxious that I'm going to miss the bus. Well, get up 5 minutes earlier. The
Yeah.
it is anxiety is quite fashionable, and that's a horrible thing to say, but it's if somebody says, "Oh, I'm cool and laid back," everybody, "Oh, I'm anxious, I'm anxious." Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sort of
Because I think
pe-
I think yes, everybody feels anxious at some
yeah,
points or
yeah,
whatever in certain things. And I do think I, that there is that line though, right, where it stops you from performing anything. And I
yes,
think that's different than,
yes,
there I've seen like in Facebook groups and things like that, people are like, "Oh, look, I just did my room. What do you think?" And people are like, "That makes me anxious. My
yeah,
anxiety is through the roof." And I'm
yeah,
like, "Stop.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not the same
exactly,
thing, guys."
exactly, yeah. And I don't know how you deal with that. It's not something that I would work with. I would work with somebody who says, my anxiety has a reason. That reason is not rational.
Right.
So if somebody's anxious about health anxieties, is a really good one. I've been to the
Right.
doctor, I've had all the tests done, I've had blood tests, I've had MRIs, there's something still wrong with me. And the doctor's telling me it's anxiety. It is.
Right.
And that's, again, the part of the subconscious, which is often got this deep-seated worry that we can just deal with.
Right. Yeah. But that's but then yeah, and then I think in that way too, it's I guess it's misdiagnosed and people don't. I guess when you have it like where it's disordered like that, right? Then it's not taken seriously. But I also think it like when people are just throwing around my anxiety without
Yeah, yeah,
actually having a
yeah.
suffer, then it really diminishes it. Kind of like
That's
everybody for a while they're throwing around narcissist, same kind
yes.
of
Oh
thing.
God, yes, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did.
It's
My mother-in-law doesn't like me, therefore she must be a narcissist. Well, maybe she just doesn't like you.
exactly, exactly, and and that's the thing too. But it's I find that is dangerous because it takes away from the
The true.
severity
Yeah,
of the actual issues, right?
yeah,
Or even
absolutely.
let's be super health based and say people who are celiac, like they will be, they could die eating it,
Yeah,
eating gluten, where people who are like, I'm gluten free, then so people in restaurants sometimes don't take it as seriously as they should when there's
yes,
true celiacs there, just because
yes,
in some ways, that I mean that's a whole other thing, but in some
yeah,
ways gluten free has become trendy in the same way,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think a lot of this is down to education, and again, that's something I'd love to get into because um, if people learnt, in high school, in that sort of 14 to 18 age group, how their feelings work, how their thoughts work, why they have the thoughts that they do, and how they can say, okay, again, a good example, you have a child. If your little boy, when he was little, screamed in the middle of the night, "Mum, mum, mum, there's a monster under my bed, I can't sleep," you wouldn't run in, grab him, run out into the street and call the army saying, there's a monster under my son's bed, can you come and deal with it? No,
No.
you would say, darling, there's no monster there. I'm in charge. I'm going to keep you safe. And
Yeah.
that's what we can do with our thoughts. So when our childlike subconscious says, "Oh, I'm scared of this, I'm scared of that, and stop, don't do this because it's dangerous," you can be the adult and say, "It's okay. I've got this. We're going to be fine. I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. I'm experienced. I'm in charge." And the subconscious will go, "Oh, okay. There's an adult in the room." And
Yeah.
once you can learn this technique of saying, okay, this thought's coming through my head. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it reasonable? And if it's all of those things, then yes, listen to it. If it's saying don't
Right.
stand too close to the edge of the train station, the
Yeah. The
line,
platform.
the
Yeah.
platform, that's the word.
Yeah.
You go, yeah, okay, that's a good personal example. I had a tiny, tiny little thing on my nose, and it was a 10 times precancerous little lesion, which I had
Right.
burnt off. I'm in Portugal. It's very sunny in Portugal. And every morning I'd go out without a hat, without sun cream, and my subconscious would say, back into the bathroom, put the sun cream on. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I'd be thinking, my logical mind will be thinking, I need to feed the horse, I need to do this, that, and the other. My subconscious,
Yeah.
a part of it had gone, no, I'm going to protect you. Go and put the bloody sun
Right.
cream on. So,
Yeah.
but if the subconscious is telling something which isn't relevant anymore, or isn't helpful, or was just plain wrong in the first place when we learnt it, we can say, no, it's okay. Don't need to worry about that. I'm in charge. I've got this. We're okay. And then
Do you think
you can
even just like reassuring yourself in that way is helpful in your own process?
you can do, yes, as long as you realize that you are. I think I don't know if the way we describe it is again, you've got if you imagine your mind is like a ship,
Yeah.
And you've got the captain, which is your conscious, rational mind, and the captain can decide what you're going to do that day, where you're going to sail to, how you're going to get there, and what you're going to do when you get there.
Hmm.
The crew is the subconscious, which is in charge of all the actual sailing of the ship. And they can say, "Oh, why are we going this direction? Why, why don't we go that way?" And the captain says, "No, I've made a decision. You know, we're going this way, and you don't need to know why because I know what I'm doing." Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
So that the captain can say to the crew, to the subconscious, "We need to work together. You need to do what I want you to do. You can come to me with legitimate concerns, but otherwise, let's all work together to get to where we want to go."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. How did you get into this? You were saying this is your third career, so I'm very
Yeah.
curious about what led you here. How did you get here?
So my first mini career was in the catering industry back in the 80s, and then I became a mortgage broker in
Oh,
London and in Dublin for 20 years. I worked in London for 8 years and then Dublin for 12 years.
wow.
And in 2007, I moved to Portugal. No real plans, just I wanted a change. And I fulfilled a lifelong ambition of having a horse. But then when you get one horse, you have to get another horse to keep the first horse company, and then you have to get a third. Anyway, at one point, we ended up with 10 horses. And we had a riding school for a while, but I wasn't really happy with the way that you're basically hiring horses out and you can't dictate how people treat them.
Yeah,
So
that's yeah.
my partner and I trained in equine assisted therapy or equine assisted education. And
Okay.
that's really fascinating. There's no riding involved, but the idea is that a horse weighs 500 kilos, so you can't push it, you can't pull it, you can't pick it up and carry it. Um, and it relies completely for its safety on body language, on reading and interpreting body language. So you can bring
Interesting.
a bunch of business people in and say, just take the horse from one side of the field to the other. No ropes, no tack, no nothing. You're a team of people. Incorporate this horse into your team and get it to the other side of the field. That's very
Right.
funny because you'll have one person going, "Come on, horse, come with me, do as you're told." And then at the other end of the scale, you'll have somebody going, "Oh, hello, nice horsey, can you please do what I ask?" So you've got the narcissist, for want of a better word, and you've got the people pleaser. And the horse will just
Yeah.
stand there and go, the horse just stands there and go, "No, not interested." So to get a good working relationship with an animal, especially a big animal, you need to have trust and respect.
Right.
If a horse trusts you, it will follow you. If it respects you, it will do what you ask. And isn't that the same with all relationships? With work
Yeah.
relationships, with human relationships, with family relationships. You have to have those two elements. And a horse will read somebody's body language and the way they hold themselves and the confidence or lack of that they give off. And
Right.
horses rely on reading that body language for their own safety. They're a prey animal. So that was brilliant, and I love it, and we still do it occasionally. But then the pandemic came along, so of course we had to
Right.
close everything down. Um, and I studied just for interest, cognitive behavioral therapy. I started
Okay. Yeah.
studying that, and I got to level 4 over a couple of years. But as part of my research, I came across a guy called Tim Box, who has a very famous TEDx talk called How Not to Be Anxious About Anxiety. So I watched
Yeah.
that, and then I did some research into him, and I saw what he was doing, which is remedial hypnotism, and I trained with him. He runs training courses, which he runs himself. He doesn't, it's not one of these multi-layer media things.
Yeah.
He just trains 6 people at a time, And that was 3 years ago. And so I'm now a qualified control practitioner. I also qualified to run workshops, which is great, 4 or 5 people at a time. And I love it. I mean, just making such a huge difference to people's lives is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean, and yeah, I mean it's a lifelong and obviously life-changing gift that it gives to
Yeah.
people, and and I would guess that it enables them to live their absolute best life as who they were meant to be in the first place.
Yeah, I mean it isn't going to it does change lives, but people will still have problems in their lives because we all do.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
imagine
for sure,
im,
sure.
im, but what it does do, it gives them the tools to be able to deal with issues that come up. And as part of the process in the last session, I teach people how to do the process for themselves,
Interesting.
empowering people and educating people so that, if they have something that comes up, they don't need to run back to me. They can come back to me, of course, and I can help them. But I'd much rather them be able to talk to their own selves and figure it out for their own selves. And how much better is that to be in charge of your own feelings and your own thoughts than
Yeah,
having to, you know, look to somebody else. It's so much better.
that's very empowering too.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
because
Um,
yeah, I would guess there's really big things that people need to work through too, and so it gives them extra power in their lives and
yeah,
control of their lives.
exactly. I think yes, that people often come to me with big things, but again, having that ability then to deal with little things because they know what to do and they know the process.
Yeah,
That gives them again more confidence in themselves. Um,
yeah,
but I'm always there if somebody says, I just need a little bit of help, or can you? I did it myself. I gave up smoking as part of the process, and I was
oh,
backsliding a
cool.
bit. So I asked Tim to talk to my subconscious
Yeah,
because my subconscious respects Tim more than it respects me. I never
right.
smoked again.
Well, that's very
Yeah.
good news.
So yes.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you have
Ah,
like you say there's 3 sessions when people see you. What does each session sort of look like? I appreciate it's probably different for some
okay.
people, but
Yeah. So I always start with a free initial consultation because one, to make sure that it's an issue that I can help with. Um, because if somebody's got schizophrenia or psychosis or something like that, that's way outside that's a medical issue. Um,
yeah,
so we have the free consultation. That also means that we can get to know each other, make sure that we can work together because you have to have a rapport. And the third thing is to make sure that the subconscious is willing and able to communicate. So about 10% of the population are what we call super responders, whose subconscious is just dying to talk and reacts very, very quickly. At the
right.
other end of the scale is about 10% of people who just, for whatever reason, maybe it's that person, that therapist, that week, whatever, they just don't respond. Um,
Right.
and therefore it would be unethical to take anything further because it would be a waste of their money, my time. I would just say, best will in the world, this isn't right for you. And
Right.
then you've got about 80% of people in the middle who respond well as long as, say, there's a rapport and they're comfortable. So that's
Right.
the first session. That's the fact-finding session. And if after that somebody says, you know what, this is not for me, that's absolutely fine. Um,
Right.
so then the first session is where we dive into what the issue is. And again, we're quite scientific. We measure at the start where they are. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is this feeling? And then at the end of the session, we're nearly always down to a 0. So 1 to 10, this feeling of fear or depression or anxiety is at a 10. It's awful. So we then
Yeah.
talk to the subconscious, explain what changes that need to be made, get those changes done, and generally we're down to a 0 at the end.
Right.
Second session is going back and making sure that we're happy that the work has taken, for want of a better word, that
Yeah.
if there's any adjustments that need to be made, any more changes that need to be made, and just basically making sure everything is okay. Often, as a result of the first session, there are other things that pop up. Um,
Right.
we call it rearranging the furniture. If you want to move the telly, you realise that the sofa's in the wrong place, so you need to move the sofa, and then the door won't open or whatever. So you just have to move things around a bit.
Yeah.
And the third session is really more, again, consolidation, teaching them the method, just making sure. However, we're not stuck with that 3-session protocol.
Right.
If at the end of session 2 or the end of session 3, we go, you know what, this isn't quite finished. We still need to do a little bit of work. We carry on. I think my longest has probably been 7 sessions. And it
Okay.
wasn't until the end of the 7th session the client said, you know what, this
I'm
is
good.
we're done. We're done. And we
Yeah.
agreed. We agreed. I didn't say,
Yeah.
oh no. But the good thing is that we charge a fixed fee. So it
Right.
doesn't matter if sometimes it's done in 2 sessions. People just say
Right.
the 3rd session, they go, you know what, I'm all right now. Don't need it. Um, if we go to 7 sessions, that's fine. So it's a fixed payment. So people
Right.
don't have to worry about, oh well, this is going to cost me more.
Right. That's and then yeah, and that's huge. And again, it like I say, it shows how much you believe in it and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that it works for people. And
Yeah.
also it shows like your integrity and everything like that too.
Yes. Again,
Right.
that first free session, I don't want to give people false hope. I don't want to give them say, yeah, I can do something when I don't think I can. So yes, I'd much rather say, look, this isn't right, but at least you know now how your mind works. Than take money off people, false pretenses. It's just not who I am.
Yeah. No. It's yeah. And do you have people that come to you that are skeptical about it going in? Um,
Yes, yes, and uh, it's to without giving away trade secrets, and I'm very open about this stuff. The way that we communicate with the subconscious is using the fingers.
right.
So there's a thing called IMRs, which is an idiomotor response. You may have come across it, and it's basically where the mind can move part of the body without you being consciously aware of it. So, for example, if I say, that finger's up, I say, okay, I'm consciously moving that finger.
Yeah.
But in remedial hypnosis, we ask the subconscious to move a finger. So all of a sudden the finger will start, and people go, whoa, 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 I didn't do that.
Right.
That's not me. And I go, well, it is you, but it's your subconscious you. And I
Right.
go, yeah, but I didn't know that finger was going to move. And anybody who comes to us and is skeptical, that tends to deal with the skepticism.
Oh no.
When you're going, yeah, your body is moving independently of your ability to move your body. Um, but if you think about it, there are
Yeah.
so many things that we do that, I talk with my hands all the time.
Right.
I'm not making a conscious decision to do that. They're just
They
moving
just
because
do
that's
it.
the way I
Yeah.
talk. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So walking, we don't consciously think that we're going to put one foot in front of the other. So although it's weird to see the subconscious moving the fingers,
Yeah.
it's not an unusual thing to happen. It's just an unusual
Right. To
application of
to
that.
notice it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Oh, but that's cool though. It's nice in a way having skeptics be like, "See, I told you."
Yes, yes. And there's a reason that they've come to me in the first place, so that there is a curiosity there, or people have got to a point where staying as they are is not acceptable. It's just not possible. They need to do something.
Yeah.
And when people get to that point, they don't want to be on a waiting list for weeks or for months to speak to somebody. They need to speak to somebody straight away, or as
Yeah.
soon as they can. And again, that's why we say we will get back to people within 24 hours of them contacting us. And secondly, we will offer them the free consultation within 1 week. So
Yeah. And
you're not going in a
it's,
waiting list for weeks and weeks. And even if you decide not to proceed, or you decide it's not right for you, at least you've found out, well, I can take that therapy off my list of possibilities. You know, I've not waited 6 months to see somebody and then found out it's not right.
yeah,
It's
exactly. I mean,
so
it's really, it's hard to get in for support for mental health. And
yeah,
gosh,
yeah,
like, and even when you go private here in the UK now, it still is quite a wait, right?
yes,
It's,
exactly. Well, that's why there's five of us working together, and we will be adding more people. And we've got Anthony in the States, Sarah Jane's in Ireland, I'm obviously in Portugal, same time zone, and then a couple of people in the UK. But because we work via Zoom, it actually doesn't matter where we're physically based.
yeah,
As long as there's a good connection, then that's all that's needed.
right. And that, yeah, and that makes a big difference. And also it makes it so much more accessible to people
Yeah,
no matter where you are,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. I've worked with people in Australia, in the States, UK. I have a few people that come here, but I would say 90% of the work I do is online.
They come for the horses too.
Oh yeah, yes. They're an added extra. I
Yeah.
don't charge
Don't
for
charge for
horse
horse love.
kisses.
Oh my gosh, it's so sweet. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know. I think it's very amazing what you're doing. And again, like I keep saying, it is life changing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's so, I think, yeah, it wouldn't be most people's first thought of how to seek help for these things, but I hope that it keeps growing and expanding, and the knowledge of it, it grows.
I th yeah, I think the main thing I would say is that unlike so many other things, it's non-toxic. It's not
Right.
addictive. It's a fixed fee. We charge £495 for the whole program. Um,
Wow. And that's
you
not,
you don't have yeah, you don't have to wait weeks. You can talk to a mental health professional within 1 week.
right.
If it's right for you, you can get fixed. If it's not, then at least you know. Um,
Yeah.
so there really is there's no downside. We're not going to change your brain. You're awake. You know what's happening throughout. You know, worst case scenario, somebody can just flip their computer lid down, and then that's never had anybody do that, but um,
Session over.
you know, a session. And I've never felt the need to do it either.
Oh,
Can go
good.
both ways.
Oh my gosh,
But
that's so funny.
yeah, it's a very gentle therapy, but it's very, very, very effective because you're talking to the core of the person, not that
Yeah.
outer shell, not that 1% that is working, that thinks it knows it all. It's that
Yeah.
99% that's underneath that does know it all.
Yeah. And accessing that is key.
Yeah, yes.
So if people want to find you, where is the best place? Are you on socials and your website? And
Yep. The our website is thecontrolpractitioners.com.
okay.
Because control is the methodology that we use. So thecontrolpractitioners.com, or you can look for me I'm across Facebook and LinkedIn and God forbid TikTok, although I still don't know how it works, but as Sarah Wellband. And I'm the only Sarah Wellband in the world, so I'm quite easy to find. There was another one, but she died in 1826 or something, and she wasn't
Oh,
online anyway.
no, probably not. Gosh, well, we'll put we'll put links to everything in the show notes so people can
Yeah,
connect with you there.
yeah.
Um, Honestly, Sarah, I've absolutely loved having you on today. I think it's going to give people a lot of things to think about and hopefully empower them to connect and move forward with their life in the best way.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm glad. Anything that we can do to help anybody doesn't cost anything for people just to talk to us, and it could change lives. We do change lives.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you
And
for the
thank you so much for
positive
having me on.
impact. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All
Bye.
right, lovely. Thank you.